Welcome to Cafe Racer Garage. If you're new here, I'm Dan and I share the process on how to build all the different aspects of a motorcycle. If that's something you're interested in, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. The idea behind the design of this tray is so that I can make it quick release. One bolt can undo the entire thing and take it right off, and then when I go motorcycle camping or I know I'm going fairly remote where I won't have mobile phone service, I can actually put this thing back on again. It's always fun to make it out of cardboard because you can make easy changes before you actually start making it out of metal. So this tool roll, fully packed, comes in at about 2 kilos. And that may not seem like too much weight, but with all of my camping gear on the saddlebags and on the luggage rack right behind me on the seat, I'm going to try and pack everything heavy as low as I possibly can. And this is just one of those things that I want to try and get as low as possible. I figured down here inside the frame, just above the swing arm, is the perfect location. And it's also a fantastic spot to have your battery mounted or have an electrics box where you can hide everything away. This belt grinder is built by a company called 84 Engineering. I've mentioned it a few times on my channel, and just to show you some of the attachments that this thing has, it's just so valuable, especially when you're trying to get into some of those real tight spots like this. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't quite fit as well as I'd hoped. As you can see, it's rocking right there. If I can manipulate that a little bit more to try and get that down. But I am contending with the problem on the other side, which is the overflow bottle for the radiator. It's actually interfering, and it's hitting on that. So I will need to bend it a little bit more anyway. And for anyone who's noticed the overflow bottle, yes, I've painted it black, but I've left a little strip on the side so I can always see how much liquid is in it. It's currently empty at the moment because I'm replacing the hoses. Now that I know that it fits up nicely, what I want to do is get rid of some of these ugly little scratches and tidy it up on the belt grinder again with the Scotch-Brite belt. And then to give it a little bit of strength, I'm going to punch flare some holes in it, which will also look kind of cool when it's finished. These punch flare dies are pretty cool, but they're only rated to 2mm aluminium, and I'm pushing them to the limit because this stuff that I'm using is 3mm. I think it should be okay. I will soon find out. If these punch flare dies don't go all the way through, I may have to start this from scratch because it might destroy the entire piece. Which is always at some point when you're building something, you think to yourself, maybe I should just leave it as is without trying to make it better. So it's good and it's bad. And here, if you can see just closely where my thumb is, right around the bottom section, this is probably why they recommend not using it for 3mm and only using it for 2mm, which is I think 14 gauge. So yeah. Definitely stick with what they recommend. I do have a little bit of tidying up to do around here. Not that it really matters too much, and it also curved it this way, which is easy to fix. I'll just put it on the bench and then just bend that end down perfectly. I'll show you what it looks like on a bit of steel that I did on the number plate bracket. Comes up perfectly when you use the right material. This is not a video about my tool roll or what's in it, but for anyone who is curious, I'll show you what I've got in here. It's a pretty extensive toolkit, well thought out, just for the bare necessities and probably a few more. It's a fairly generic setup, but what I put in it is exactly what I think I would need depending on which bike I put it on. If I'm going to go remote and I know I won't have much mobile phone service, I'll definitely put a set of tyre irons and a tyre repair kit. And I may even add a piece of hose, because if you go further than you actually thought you were, or you underestimated how much fuel you had, a fellow motorcyclist goes past and you wave him down because you need some help. Generally, motorcycle riders will stop and help you. You can always siphon some fuel out of his tank. I think I've just messed it up and made a mistake. Whew, she's still hot. This gusset that I just put in was originally going to go on that way, but midway through I was like, you know what, I'm going to make it stronger and put it this way. But unfortunately, I forgot about the actual bolt that was going to go at the bottom here, on the bottom section, because I got one at the top, and there was meant to be one at the bottom. But now I can't fit it because I've got that gusset in the way. It still fits and it's nice and firm, but it only has the one bolt at the top, and I would really like to have two. I had a plan on doing a quick release setup at the bottom one, but now that I can't put that bolt in there, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. Over the years, I've managed to accumulate a ton of stuff, and I don't like to throw things away, especially this kind of webbing. I've got a few rolls of it I've been handed down to me, or I picked up from a closing down sale or something, and this is gonna be perfect for this project. In order to secure the tool roll in here to get it out easily, I was going to use some shock cord, or commonly known as bungee cord. It's that stretchy stuff with little hooks on the end usually. I was going to try and figure out how to put that on there, but I couldn't really get a neat way of folding this back on itself and making a place to mount that. I figured that would be really messy. Thought about using swages, like the stainless swages that you get on steel wiring, and thought about doing that, or even putting one of these guys in there, but I just didn't think it was going to look any good. It's going to look real big and bulky, not what I was after. It's actually been a while since I last used this thing, so now I've got to try and figure out how I thread it up again. Actually, I think I've got instructions. Haha! What we used to use before we had Google, right? So down, up, down, and through. We can manage that, seems pretty easy. Whoever invented the sewing machine is an absolute genius. Something we take for granted, but it's quite a complicated little thing. Alrighty, we are rolling. The easiest way to cut webbing or rope so that it doesn't fray is just to heat up a knife super hot and then just go straight through it, and that'll just seal the end for you. You can also cut it with a pair of scissors and then just use a flame on it to burn the end. That also works. A couple of extra options for you if you don't want to go to the effort of making yourself a webbing strap with a hook and loop on it, like I did. You could easily go to a hardware store or a craft shop and get something similar to this, which will do the same thing. It's just the hook and loop by itself, so it's not as strong as the webbing, but it will still work. Or even this option would work quite well. You just need a bolt to attach that somehow, whichever way you think would work for you. These are in the automotive space and they're used on the back of utes or maybe pickup trucks, depending on where you're located. How cool is this? I just realized that that mounting problem that I was having at the bottom to get the extra bolt in here has just resolved itself. This is the stash box that I made with the secret lock for that bike, and that's the bracket on the bottom. But if you see, there's 3 bolts, and the 2 on either side are perfect for the line-up point of this. So what I'm going to do is basically just cut 2 sections like this. Those little slots will be just big enough to hold a bolt like this to go in, and then all I have to do is nip it up and then unnip it when I want to take it out, and it will just slide up and down. Here's a perfect example as to why I need to build a little fender or mudguard for this. I just took the bike up the side of my house, and as you can see, the clump of grass that's just sitting here, and that's just in a really short space. I'll put the tool roll in a waterproof stuff sack just for now, but eventually I will be building a little internal mudguard for that. Remember when you're a kid and you used to get a piece of paper and run a pencil or a crayon over the top of something to get the tracing of what was underneath? That's a perfect trick to get the spacings of the holes for this. Temporarily going to glue some rubber to the back of this, some thin rubber, and that'll stop anywhere where it's going to touch the frame from wearing into the actual powder coat. I just want to get this bracket installed for now and install it in case I need to make any changes, but eventually I'll probably have it powder coated, and therefore when I put the rubber back on again, I'll use a contact adhesive. It's a lot stronger. I'm using a little bit of liquid thread lock to lock the 2 bottom bolts in place, and then all I have to do is release the top bolt and the whole thing can come out. The bottom bolts will just be a friction fit. There were so many different ways that I came up with to make this a quick release bracket, and this is the easiest and fastest way I could think of to guarantee that it wouldn't come loose. You could even weld a single chain link to the head of the top bolt, which would allow you to remove this thing without even having to have any tools on you, and then you could also put your webbing through that as well if you wanted to not have the little slots on the side. Well, it's time for me to go and wash this bike. If you want to see how I made a stash box with a secret lock, I'll leave that video right here. And if you want to see how I made a wireless taillight for a cafe racer, I'll leave that video right there.